Hello, I'm Mark Baer. You're watching YourTown Television. I'm with Scotty Cornfield, author. The book is fast fiction. It's 101 stories, 101 words each. You've got your own copy.
I do.
So let's first of all talk about Kirkus Review, because this is a big deal.
Yeah, it was a great birthday present a couple of weeks ago. Kirkus is kind of like the gold standard for the book reviews, and so they said, smart, snappy, compelling tales. So
Snappy.
I thought, yeah. So,
Snappy.
Yeah, you got to have something snappy.
So let's, just to give people an idea what we're talking about, let's read one.
Okay. All right. So all of these stories are based on prompts that people give me. I get them from friends and readers. And it's just, they'll give me a single word or sometimes a line or, it's just something very short. And I just take it and run with it, do whatever I do. So I'll get up every day, go out on my morning walk with my pandemic puppy, got my voice recorder going. I'll pick the prompt of the day, just looking at my list. And then I just create it while we're out there on the stroll, come back to the office and then put the thing together. And I do it every day.
And you do it every day?
Every single day. So the prompt on this one was a hobby. And the story I wrote was called Honesty Should Count for Something. Kenneth sat at his assigned table in the middle of the gym. He readjusted his name tag again and waited as the next speed date candidate strode up to him. She's done this before. Way too cocky. She sat across from him, locked in on his name tag. She thrust out her hand. Maggie May, what do you do for fun, Kenneth? He leaned in close, whispered, I break into houses and steal ladies' underwear. Maggie laughed loud enough to turn heads. Nice, she said. Finally, an original opening line. Kenneth just nodded. Can't say I didn't warn her, he thought.
So, these are really hard to do. As a writer, it's easier to write 20 pages than it is to write one page.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you stumbled on this, but you did and you do.
It wasn't my idea. I have to admit, it was a contest. It was a local contest from a weekly paper, and they do an annual thing, 101 word stories. And so I just thought a few years ago, I just said, let me just try it. I've never written anything short like that. And I did, and I wasn't very good at it, but I'd never done it before. But it was fun. And so I did it the next year, and I did it the next year. And after doing it a couple of years, I said, I'm gonna go with this. And so I started doing it. I got into a thing with my son where he would send me a prompt and I would do a story. I would send him a prompt. He would write some music, and we were doing that on a regular basis. And then he got busy with life because he has to work for a living, and I don't. So I stuck with it. Well, it's just a hobby that I've stuck with now every single day. So
you did work, and you've started as a writer, and you've been doing this forever, and you had also a career in law enforcement simultaneously, but you started in journalism school.
I did.
So let's talk about how you got to be you, which is an amazing story to me.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened either. But yes, I was in high school. I got into journalism and just fell in love with it. And I was writing on the school paper. Got a job doing some stuff for local weekly papers, and then I was doing some sports writing for a daily paper. And I had this fateful conversation with the editor one day where he just asked me, what are you going to major in? And I was already at San Jose State, and I thought it was the dumbest question I ever heard because everyone at the paper was a San Jose State journalism grad. That was a great school for that. And so it was like assumed, at least I assumed, that's what I was going to do. And he said, no, don't major in journalism. And I was like, what do you mean, don't major in journalism? And he said, I don't need that. I go, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, as an editor, I don't need another guy with a journalism degree. If you got a business degree, you could be my business writer. If you got a degree in politics, you could be a political writer. Criminal justice, you could write crime. So it's like, okay, what do I do now? So I looked around. I had a friend, and she was in the criminal justice program. And she said, hey, you should get into this because it's getting too crowded. They're going to close it down. And I thought, yeah, crime, that could be kind of fun. So that's what I did. I declared myself as an administration and justice major, got into it, really, really liked it. And ended up deciding I wanted to do that for a career. I could see my career in journalism, at least at the paper I was at, and I did not want to be there 25 years later still writing high school sports. So I got into law enforcement, really liked it, and never went back to journalism, but never gave up a love of writing either.
So let's talk about your arc through law enforcement. Where do you start? Because again, I've been thinking about you and thinking about this, and how rare it is to the writer is usually an observer. It's someone who is, kind of always noting what's going on around them, and the perversity of a cloak of invisibility that a writer has.
Right. Detached observer, just kind of taking it all
Yes,
in.
and then there's the man of action, who the observer is looking at, or the person of action, I should say, who is the person in the arena, the policeman, the athlete, the whatever, and you're both these things always simultaneously, and it's a very odd. It's not like you were a policeman and then you became a writer. You were always this. So you'll have that always. There's a bit of detachment that must go with you through your whole life. So let's talk about going through law enforcement, where you started, where you ended up.
I started out like everybody does in law enforcement as a patrol officer. In local law enforcement, everyone starts out the same way. You start working patrol, uniform deal, handling the 911 calls. And then I moved around to different assignments throughout my career. I was at the department 28 years, retired as a commander, but I did some really fun stuff along the way. I mean, I always wanted to be a homicide detective, and so that's what I became.
And this is in San Jose?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did that. I remember one of my field training officers years later saying, "I remember when I was training you, you telling me you wanted to be a homicide detective." And I said, "Well, yeah, it was just one of those things that I always thought it would be cool to do." And fortunately, not everybody wants to do that because it's a very competitive field at the police department, a big one like that. And a lot of people don't want to do that. And so it allowed people like me that want to, that have the ability that, you have to prove yourself as a detective, that, you maybe belong at that level. And so I got to do that for a number of years, which I loved. And then I did some deep undercover stuff that I really loved, because that was even more exclusive, because very few people, just a handful of people.
So that brings in your acting as well.
Yeah, I used to tell people, one bad review is all you get in the undercover world, because if somebody doesn't like your performance, sometimes it doesn't go well. So you got to be really very convincing.
Is this stuff scary?
Yeah, there are moments, yeah. I mean, they used to say in police work it was like 90% boredom, 10% sheer terror. I don't know if the percentages are exactly like that, but yeah, there are moments, particularly, when you're in one of those deep assignments where you don't have anybody around you. A lot of times you've got cover units, you're wired, you've got people watching you from all over, and you've got signals and all kinds of things. But when you're doing the deep stuff, it's just you out there by yourself, and that's it. It's just, you got to work it out on your own, because there's no help, because nobody knows where you are a lot of times when you're doing what you're doing.
So this is really acting, but not acting for a camera.
No, you're acting for your life sometimes.
Yeah, but you have to be a good actor.
Yeah, like I said.
You have to fall. So tell me how you. It's like prepping for a role.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And so how do you do it? Well, you just watch you talked about that observer thing.
Yeah.
Well, you really become a good observer when you're doing that. Watching how other people do it. That are in that circle that you're trying to penetrate. Right? I'm trying to get in with this group. How can I be like these people? And how can I get, I want to get a really good review from somebody in that group so that I get credibility. So if I get in tight with one person, then they will vouch for me. It's like, hey, who is this guy? No, Scotty's cool. I've already seen him. I've seen him do some things. He's cool. Like I would set up things where I would have police officers pull me over and give me a ticket that they would see, so these guys are watching me get shaken down. And it's like, well, they know I can't be a cop because this guy just got a ticket. He got, roused by the cops. So, or I would plant evidence in my car that I knew they would find. If I get out of my car, they're going to search it, and they'd find stuff that was, illegal stuff. So they'd see that, they'd see Coke mirrors and straws and, crumpled up tickets and stuff. So it's like they knew that I was okay. And then they would tell other people that, and that's how you get inside. That's how you infiltrate those groups.
Do you get confused? Do people get confused if they're long enough inside?
That's a danger. That's absolutely a danger of doing this a long time. So I remember the FBI came out with a study at one point that said they wouldn't let anybody be too deep for more than a year if they thought that was kind of like the breaking point. Because when I went into that mode, I was away from the police department for a year, physically not touching, my foot on the PD property for a year, because you can't, if you run into somebody that sees you in that, what are you doing at the police department? So you stay away, but you have handlers, people that meet you as intermediaries. So we would have a safe house that we could go to, and that's where you stay connected with the police department, because you got to have that. Otherwise, it's like you kind of forget, or you can forget who your friends are.
Yeah, because these people do become your friends.
You've got to befriend them.
And again, given the makeup of the writer, they become human to you.
Oh, for sure, absolutely.
You see them. Right, I'm sure black and white and right and wrong become not necessarily confusing, but they become your friends.
Yeah, you see them in a whole other world. You see them with their kids,
and
you see them interacting with their kids and teaching their kids things that are going to just mess those kids up forever. I knocked on a door one time, and this kid opens the door, and his dad yells at him, "Hey, don't open that door! You didn't know who was there. That could have been a cop." And he goes, "No, Daddy, that's Scotty. It's just Scotty here," because the kid knew me from these interactions. And the guy goes, you didn't know who that was. Don't ever open that door. That could have been a cop. So how's that kid going to grow up, right? What's he being taught about law enforcement? So you see stuff like that. And you just see the other side of things that you will never see in a uniform.
Now homicide, what I see on TV and what you see in life.
Oh, totally real.
What's the biggest misconception that people have about this?
Yeah, well, we never break for commercials.
Yeah.
Biggest misconception, or certainly one of them, is the whole CSI thing. That every crime scene's got every piece of evidence you could ever want, and you're never lacking for physical evidence. There are classes at law schools where they're teaching defense attorneys how do you get over that how do you get over the CSI factor? How do you convince a jury that there won't be that kind of evidence sometimes? That's a big part of it, I think, is people think that there are a lot of things that don't exist on a regular basis, and thinking that every crime gets solved too. Obviously, that doesn't happen in the real world. And you watch, Law and Order. How many shows do you see where they don't solve a murder? But it happens, right? I mean, because you don't have that volume of evidence sometimes. Or every fantastic witness that shows up on one of those shows are getting suspects that confess to everything. It doesn't always happen like that in the real world.
But cases were puzzles.
Absolutely.
So you became a good. You became a good puzzle master. Is that what?
Well, they're all like that. And my specialty really was interrogation. That's the thing I loved, and that's what I became an expert in and taught for 25 years, teaching detectives around the country. That was the puzzle I loved. It was like, if I get you in the room, how can I get to the key? What's the key that's going to open you, unlock you, get you to tell me your deepest, darkest secrets, the things that are not going to be to your advantage to tell me, right? I mean, you confess to a crime.
And you don't do it through badgering, I assume. You do it through
psychological domination sometimes.
Yes.
Obviously, no physical, torture, waterboarding, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that sounds great for TV and movies, but no. So it's getting somebody to want to tell you for whatever reason. And I have to figure out what that is. It's going to get you to want to tell me the truth. Things that are not going to be in your best interest, things that might put you away for the rest of your life.
So that sense of human insight is the same thing that you brought to, started with you in writing, that you brought to your other things. So I want to say that you didn't, you had a production company.
True.
You made a feature film along the way.
I did.
So let's talk about the feature film, and then we'll go to the production company.
Okay.
And just very quickly through this stuff.
Sure. So I got into filmmaking. I was making short films. I got in with a group from San Francisco, a great co-op where we all worked on each other's films for free. So you can make a movie very inexpensively that way. And we all kind of wear different hats doing what we need to do to help each other on their movies. So I'm a writer-director, but on somebody else's movie, I could be operating the boom pole, or I could be a script supervisor, or moving lights around, whatever. But we all worked on each other's movies, like I said, for free. And then a group of us got together that made all these short films and said, what if we tried to make a full-length feature film? And so we did. And so we took these 5 separate short films that we shot, and then we put them all together in a way that it makes a full-length feature. And we had some characters that would cross over from story to story. So my story was about a homeless guy, and some of his homeless buddies wind up in other stories, where another story is about a public defender. And so one of the homeless guys winds up as a client of the public defender in one of those other stories that eventually all kind of come together at the end.
It sounds very Raymond Carver,
yeah.
Again, it's a big deal to have accomplished this.
And we were really, really lucky because we got an Academy Award nominated editor to put it all together for us, a guy that I never thought would touch this movie. But I knew he liked independent films. I reached out to him and I said, you're probably not going to want to do this. I don't have a lot of money. We can't pay you a lot, not what you're worth, because this guy edited films like Captain America and Jumanji, and the Academy Award nomination was for Black Stallion too. So this guy was the real deal. He'd been in Hollywood for decades, but he's toward the end of his career. He loves indie filmmakers, and he said, "I will do your movie."
What's the name of the film?
San Francisco Stories.
San Francisco Stories.
Yeah, and it's available. You can see it on Amazon and a bunch of different platforms. You can stream it.
So this is that's pretty amazing in itself. So then along the way, you've got a production company.
True. Yeah.
So again, you're homicide by day, production by night, or however it works. Let's talk about the production company.
I had wanted to try something in TV. I'd never done that. Of course, I had the journalism career. In college, I did radio shows, but I thought TV would be kind of cool. So I got into local access cable TV. I pitched a bunch of ideas. The idea that they liked was a movie review show. I said, what if I review whatever's at the local theater, and then I'll interview the audience when they come out? And so it's like, okay, that was my review on Rocky 43, but here's what you mere mortals had to say. And then we cut to people coming out and going, oh, it was really great the way he hit him in the face. And we would cut that stuff in. So I did that for a couple of years, learned a little bit about TV, and then eventually just decided I wanted to do this more. So we bought our own equipment, started doing parties and weddings and that kind of stuff, and then corporate stuff. And then that led to doing some TV things as well. Like one of our clients was America's Most Wanted. So when they came out, if there was a story, in or near San Jose, we were the people that would do that for them. So, and that got really goofy because I'd be standing in a suit with a camera crew outside a courthouse, and all my cop buddies are walking by looking at me like, what are you doing? And is this a sting? What's going on? And, no, I'm working for America's Most Wanted. You go, uh-huh. So anyway, it was crazy.
The book is Fast Fiction, Volume 1. Volume 2 is on the way.
It is absolutely.
And I'm with Scotty Cornfield.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
I'm Mark Baer. You're watching YourTown TV. Thank you.